Does your iPhone take bad photos at night? If so, you're definitely not alone. That's because your iPhone, just like any other smartphone, has a small camera sensor, which makes it more difficult to take sharp photos in low light conditions. With that said, there are simple techniques anyone can use to take high quality iPhone photos when it's dark. So in this short video, you're going to discover 3 secrets for taking tack sharp iPhone photos at night. Once you start using these secrets, you'll be able to take flawless iPhone photos even in the middle of the night. You're probably a bit skeptical, but in this video I'll show you exactly how to do it. Now, if you can't hear me, please tap on this video to turn on the sound, and then we can get started. When we're talking about night photography, it's really important to understand that there's no such thing as photography in complete darkness. That's because your camera is essentially a light capturing device. The only thing a camera does is capture light, and if there's no light to capture, you cannot take a photo. So where do you find light for your night photos? Well, the easiest way to find light at night is to simply look for subjects that are already illuminated. And as it turns out, most cities have a large variety of subjects you can use for night photography. For example, landmarks, buildings, and bridges are often illuminated. So are storefronts, restaurants, and bars. Even ads and billboards are typically lit up, and things like Christmas decorations can be perfect for night photography too. So any city has a large number of subjects you could use for night photography, and if they're illuminated, you'll be able to take really high quality photos even at night. Let me show you what I mean. I want to take a photo of the beautiful church tower in the background, and this tower is nicely illuminated, which is exactly what I need. At the same time, there's this lamp closer to me, and that lamp illuminates the leaves at the top of the screen as well as the flowers at the bottom of the screen. And I think I could try to combine all these elements into a really beautiful composition. Now, another thing I like about this scene is the fact that it's not completely dark yet. The sky is dark blue, but it's not black, and I think the dark blue sky should go together with the church tower really well. So in order to take this photo, I want to start by switching to the telephoto lens of my iPhone. Now, if your iPhone has only one lens, that's okay, you can still do great night photography. In fact, the wide-angle lens is usually better for taking photos at night because it lets in more light than telephoto. However, for this specific composition, I think the telephoto lens will work better. So I'm going to switch to the telephoto lens by tapping on the circular 1x icon at the bottom of the screen. So now we're using telephoto, and you can see we're much closer. So I want to quickly adjust the composition and the framing, and to do that, I need to move around a little bit. I want to make sure the tower does not overlap with the leaves, and I want to make sure that all the elements fit together nicely. Once I'm happy with the composition, I'm almost ready to take a shot. But first, I want to make sure that the tower in the background is perfectly sharp. In other words, I want to set focus on the church tower. And to do that, all I have to do is simply tap my finger on the tower, and you'll see this yellow box appear, which means that the tower is now in focus. And finally, before I press the shutter, I want to make this image just a tiny bit darker. And this is kind of counterintuitive, but when you're taking photos at night, you'll generally do better if you make them darker, not brighter. So to make this photo darker, I'm gonna simply swipe my finger down the screen, and I can do this because I've already set focus on the tower. So if I simply swipe my finger down the screen, you'll see the image get a little bit darker. The colors are also now more natural, and as a whole, this image should be sharper and have less grain. So now I'm finally ready to take a shot. I'm going to try to keep my iPhone as steady as I can, and I'll go ahead and press the shutter. And this is the kind of photo I could only take because I found a really beautiful illuminated subject. But now, let me show you another example. I found this really beautiful door that's nicely illuminated. And there's a balcony right on top of this door, and I think that'd make a great photo. So I'm going to start by framing the shot, and I'm going to frame it in such a way where I get a symmetrical composition. And to achieve that, I'm standing exactly in the center of the door, and I also don't want to include any of the pavement in the foreground, because I don't think it belongs there. Once I'm happy with my framing, I'm going to tap my finger on the brightest part of the image to set focus there, and I also need to adjust exposure, so I'm going to swipe my finger down a bit. Once I've found the correct brightness level for this photo, I'll go ahead and press the shutter. And actually, I'm really happy with the way this photo turned out. I think the light looks really beautiful there. And finally, to give you one last example, I think this street lamp could make a really interesting photo. So I'll frame the shot carefully, I'll tap my finger on the lamp to set focus there, and in order to make the image darker, I'm going to swipe my finger down to decrease exposure. And once I've found the correct level of brightness, I'll go ahead and take a photo. And looking back at this image, I'm actually really happy with the way it turned out. And as you can see, there are a lot of illuminated subjects in the city, and all of them are perfect for taking sharp iPhone photos at night. When you look at a photo, you see a stationary moment frozen in time, but in reality, any photo is captured over a period of time. During that time, the shutter of the camera is open and it lets through light, which then reaches the camera sensor. At night, when there's less light, the shutter has to stay open for longer to let in the same amount of light. But the problem is that any movement while the shutter is open results in blurry photos. For example, if your hands are shaking while the shutter is open, you'll get a blurry photo. Or if your subject is moving while the shutter is open, you'll also get a blurry photo. And because of that, it's so important that you keep your iPhone as steady as possible, especially when you're shooting at night. Let me show you why that's so important. I want to take a photo of the beautiful cathedral over there, but if my hands are moving or shaking as I'm pressing the shutter, I'll end up with a really blurry photo. Now, obviously, this is a bit of an exaggerated example, and normally your hands wouldn't be shaking so much, but any movement while you're taking a shot will result in blurry photos at night. So how do you keep the iPhone steady? Well, first and foremost, you want to start by holding your iPhone correctly. If you're right-handed like I am, start by placing your left palm in front of you. Then, position your iPhone on your palm like this. Use your thumb to support one side of the iPhone, and use your little finger to support the other side of the iPhone. Then the middle three fingers will support the back of the iPhone. With this grip, you can get a really steady shot, and you can quickly rotate between landscape and portrait orientation, or you can conveniently carry your phone while you're not taking photos. But we're not done yet. I also have my right hand, so I'm going to use my right hand to further support the iPhone from below like this. Or if I'm shooting in portrait, I'll support my iPhone like this. Now, another thing that's really important is how you position your elbows. You want to avoid shooting with stretched out arms like this, because that creates a lot of shakiness. Instead, you want to use your elbows to position them against your rib cage like so, and they'll give you a steadier shot. Now, you don't always have that option, but you can sometimes further stabilize your body by leaning against a vertical structure such as a wall or a tree. Or if you have that option, you can even position your hands on a stationary object, and that way you'll get even more stability. So now, I want to take another shot of the beautiful cathedral, this time holding my iPhone correctly. But I'll be really careful with how I press the shutter, because the simple act of pressing the shutter button can also shake your iPhone. So I'm going to use my right thumb to touch the shutter button, and I'll barely touch it so that I don't move the iPhone too much. And if we now compare the two photos side by side, you'll see that the second photo is so much sharper simply because the iPhone wasn't moving as I was pressing the shutter. So the bottom line is this: if you're taking photos at night, you want to keep your iPhone as steady as possible, and that way you'll get the sharpest possible results. And finally, one thing we haven't yet talked about is taking photos of people when it's dark. And depending on how much light you have available in the scene, you may or may not be able to get beautiful results. Let me show you. I want to take a photo of my wife who's standing under the tree where it's quite dark. But no matter how steady I keep my iPhone, and no matter what I do, I just can't get beautiful photos. They're all too dark or too grainy or too blurry, and they just don't look right. So one thing I could try is turning on the flash, and to do that, I'm going to tap on the flash icon at the top left, and once the flash is on, I'll go ahead and take another photo. But unfortunately, even the flash photo doesn't look good. The light on the face of my subject is really flat. There are no shadows of any kind, which doesn't look natural. And honestly, those red eyes just look kind of creepy. So it looks like I can't take a good photo without flash, and I can't take a good photo with flash. So what can I do? Well, there is one thing I could still try, and that is to find an external light source that would illuminate the face of my subject. So I'm going to use the street lamp right next to me, and I'll position my wife directly in front of it so that she's looking towards the light, and that way both sides of her face will be illuminated equally. Next, I'm going to switch to the portrait mode of my iPhone by swiping my finger horizontally across the screen from right to left, like this. Now the reason I'm switching to portrait mode is because I want to blur out the background, and I think that will result in a nicer photo. But if you don't have the portrait mode, that's okay too. And now I'm going to try to keep my iPhone as steady as I can, and I'll gently press the shutter. And if we look at the image I just took, it actually turned out exactly the way I wanted. And that's because I took the time to find an external light source that would illuminate the face of my subject. Now, as you can see from the techniques I just shared, the iPhone camera looks really simple on the surface. But when you start digging deeper, it's really not that simple. There are so many hidden camera features and camera settings that you probably don't know about, and I could only share a handful of them in a short video like this. And to make things worse, it's not enough to simply learn about all the different iPhone camera features. You also have to understand how to use each one of them in different photography scenarios. We're talking about different light conditions, different photography subjects, and even different genres and styles of photography. Now, here's the good news. Once you really understand iPhone photography, you'll be able to take the kind of photos that nobody would even believe were taken with the iPhone. And that's why I created iPhone Photo Academy, which is an online course teaching you everything there's to know about iPhone photography. So right next to this video, you'll find more information about my full iPhone Photo Academy course. If you'd like to use your iPhone to take stunning photos that you'll be proud to look at many years later, and if you'd like to do it without having to carry your bulky camera, then please take a look at my full iPhone Photo Academy course. There's more information right next to this video, so take a look, and I really hope to see you there.